Okay, I'm ready whenever you are, Gary.
Okay, 1 second. All right, I have 6:30. I'd like to call this meeting of the Community Relations Committee, regular meeting to order, Wednesday, November 16th, here at 6:30. I am here, Gary Paul, if you could please state your name for roll call.
John Marshall.
Kevin Dabrowski.
Counselor Naomi Rodriguez.
Bill Psalms.
Mary's here,
All right.
Bill's here.
All right, are there any,
Steve Maslin, and you've got the people in the audience.
are there any citizen comments? Hearing none. Tonight, we have a presentation. We're joined by our Public Works Director, Mr. Steve Maslin, and I appreciate you taking your time to do this tonight. I would just like to quickly say that when I moved back to Ledyard 10 years ago, one of the things I told my kids is Ledyard is a place that's taken care of very, very well, and so I appreciate it, and this is a great opportunity to.
Well, we've got a little bit to talk about tonight, so we should get right into it. I just do apologize for those who are here in the auditorium. Our TV blocks out some at the bottom, so you might have to look very carefully, or I'll be reading through the information, so hopefully it won't be an issue. But this is, of course, the flyer that went out, and I pretty much stuck to the script on the categories. It pretty much hits the high points, and certainly the things that the public would be most interested in. I would just first say, by way of introduction, you've got, okay, now maybe we would have to get rid of those things on the side if you could.
Oh, Kevin, can you change the view so that we can't see all the people?
Just get rid of the,
I'm trying to, how do I do that?
Okay. You gotta do it on
the, by way of introduction, this is just kind of a snapshot of a progression getting into the town website. If you've never been there before, there are departments. There's a departments tab at the top. You click and you see that's a partial view of the drop down that comes down, and you can pick Public Works. And this gives an overview and some contact information. Obviously, it's too small to read, but it's just intended to help those that want to navigate that, and there will be information you can get from wherever you are sitting in front of a computer. Winter operations, we might as well get right into it. We missed the snow today, but some people didn't up north, and it's going to be coming. So let's go right through some of the key things here. First, in terms of snow operations, we have protocols we follow. The people would be helpful for them to understand that. In terms of how do we mobilize, what do we do in terms of timing of that? We try to be as proactive as possible. We follow all the different weather services that we can. We actually now have deployed 3 weather stations you may be aware of, and 3 locations in town that give us road surface temperature as well as a live camera view of what's happening, and we can track that information and see what's happening in advance of the temperature at the road surface dropping below freezing, especially when things are wet or anticipated to get wet. And so those have been very helpful. The superintendent also monitors stations that are throughout the state. The state has stations, and he can see a progression of what's happening. As we know, the weather usually moves from west to east, so he can see where the snow has started. As you know, the radar doesn't always tell the truth. Things don't always hit the ground in the way the radar says it's coming, but that's helpful. So if we are caught without, sometimes a surprise event, the police are always out, and we will frequently get called for a situation like a black ice condition that develops or something that we may not have anticipated somewhere. And so that's the fallback. But we typically try to get out and get the salt down ahead of conditions deteriorating now. As far as plowing priorities, especially in a big event, obviously the key is to keep the main roads open. And so we focus on that. get around and keep those open and stay on top of the main roads throughout the course of the storm. And then we're also in touch with emergency services. If they have a special need, we'll divert a truck wherever they need to have our help. We also have GPS in all of our vehicles now, all our plow trucks and other vehicles. We know where they're at, and the superintendent can talk directly to one of the trucks where he sees where a need might exist, and he can vector that. Routes. Okay, now this is where you're not going to be able to see the information here in the auditorium, so I'll read this through. We have 11 plow routes. They're about 10 miles each. We've designed those routes to be as efficient as possible with respect to equal timing of coverage and service. It takes about 2 to 3 hours for a driver to complete a simple pass through the route, meaning just opening up the roads, every one of the roads, both lanes, just opening them up. And then it takes about 8 hours when the last snowflake falls and we say clean up completely to get out and get it all cleaned up. Cul-de-sacs and intersections pushed back completely. So that's why sometimes people are affected by a truck coming by after they've got their driveway all cleaned up and they get hit with another dose of snow in the driveway. It's just because it takes that long for us after the snow ends to get to it, especially the big events. Parking ban. This is important because there are times when the snow is at such a level that any vehicles in the road are going to cause tremendous problems. So by ordinance, we have the authority to put a parking ban in place at any point that the mayor and I in consultation decide that needs to be done. It's put out over public airwaves, television stations, and I think even radio. But during winter time frame, from December 1st to March 31st, there is an established parking ban from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning, a blanket parking ban. So it doesn't matter what the weather is then, you are not allowed to have vehicles on the road between 1 and 6 a.m. And then, of course, no on-street parking is allowed during parking bans, and you would be subject to being towed if the first effort that's made is for a license plate number given by our driver to dispatch. They will try to contact the owner. That works most often, but if there is no contact, then we have had a number that are towed. That is a problem. You don't want to be on the wrong side of that. Complaints or questions would be best directed directly to our highway superintendent. And the number you see there, or barely see, make out from here, is the normal highway superintendent number at the highway garage. He's at 860-464-9060 extension 1. So he would be the one to handle it, and those complaints, of course, and questions would relate to anything in terms of timing of service, damage that might be caused, speeding. We get, of course, complaints about fast drivers, and I have to tell you, one of the things that people don't realize is that the appearance of speed is much greater when stuff is flying off a plow blade than normal. And our GPS, we keep GPS records, so we can go right back at any point and look at what's going on, and we have rarely found a case where the driver's been driving at an excessive speed. It's the appearance of speed, but we do handle those issues. Mailboxes. Want to do your best to make them plow-proof, and it really depends on where you live, or what kind of a stretch of road you live on. If you're on Colonel Ledyard Highway and a straight stretch of road there, you're going to be exposed to much higher impact than a cul-de-sac street or a side street where the speeds of and the nature of the snow moving isn't going to be as impactful. So what we first advise is that residents make sure that you have a stable, secure, rugged mailbox installation. So the post, the type of mailbox you've got, the attachment to the post, it's important that meet the needs that you have in your area. because, and those might change, not every snowstorm is the same. If you have a heavy slushy snow, it's gonna be 10 times the weight sometimes of a powdery snow, certainly, so it might not be the same every time. So, when it comes to damage though, which will happen every winter, there's always something that's damaged. We only assume liability if there's physical contact between the plow and either the mailbox itself or the post. If it's just the snow coming off the plow, we don't assume liability, and I went into that earlier. You gotta make sure you have a rugged installation that can meet your needs where you're at. And we will evaluate that. We'll go out and look to determine if there's evidence of a contact before we assume liability. A lot of times, if you've got an old mailbox on a wooden post, it might, we get the call, it's been great for years. Well, 30 years ago it was new, and it might not be any different, but other than the post rotting at the base. So things do change, and you have to look at that. Now, the post office has specific guidelines for placement of a mailbox because, obviously, not only for their needs in proximity to the service that they need to provide, but it has to be off the edge of the pavement for contact purposes. And so 6 to 8, they say 6 to 8 inches off the face of it, off the edge of pavement or curb, and about 3.5 feet high. And of course, they show a post situation, but if we also have situations where people will leave the mailbox sticking out into the road. We don't assume liability if we know that it was left improperly installed. So this is just to show that there are official guidelines for that. Okay, so now, if you want to find the further detailed information about this, there's about I think it's a 10 to 12 page document that we put together that has all kinds of information about winter operations. I don't know if you can see. This is, again, going through the town website, through the Public Works.
Excuse me.
See if this pops up for you. Yeah, okay. So, if you go through the town website, you hit Public Works, and on the left, there are a few links, and there's this link there, Winter Operations Facts and Frequently Asked Questions. Way more than what I just stated, and there's no need to go through all of the different things you may have by way of questions, and people have all kinds of questions, and if you really want to get fully involved in what we do or want to understand that, this document will provide that information. Waste services, we'll move now to curbside collection. What about the basics of this? We have an ordinance for this as well. So this is governed by a town ordinance, 400-007. It's important to know it's a contracted service, which means the town has a direct relationship with the hauler. It's not private subscription where residents can go directly to the hauler and make specific personal arrangements with them. There are set provisions for every resident by contract, and the contractor works through that contract to meet those provisions. There are certain qualifications that the town can extend to people. We'll talk about those. It's a weekly trash and a every other week recycling. People probably know that. Let me see. Cart should be at the curb by 6 a.m. on the day of service. It's important that most people, if you're like me, you put it out the evening before. Sometimes you gotta be careful about that. If it's a snow event, you're not gonna wanna put it out there knowing that the plow's gonna come by and knock your trash all over the place. But for the most part, you're gonna be okay with that. Now I'm gonna zoom in on this. There are 6 holidays. You can't really see it any better. So there are 6 holidays that do affect collection or may affect collection, depending on when they fall. If they, for instance, like New Year's and Christmas, fall on a weekend this year, or Christmas and New Year's going into next year. So there is no delay of the holiday. But if they do fall during the week, then there will be a day-for-day delay after the day that the holiday falls. There's 6 of those, so remember, there's not most of the holidays, just the big holidays, and you're not gonna wanna assume that on Labor Day, you don't get, oh, no, I'm sorry, Labor Day's on here, what's another holiday, Veterans Day, you know, that's not a holiday that causes a delay, so you gotta remember that. Okay. Service provisions. Now, this is again the contract, a matter of the contract. 1 trash and 1 recycling cart per single-family unit. So, I mean, you have a double occupancy home, they get 2. So, but so for by single-family unit, you get a single set of carts. And there is no exception for trash here. You cannot get an extra cart. There are provisions for an extra recycling cart. I'll say that if you have chronic issues with recycling on an every other week basis, if you make a $100 reimbursable deposit, you can get a second cart. And if that cart's delivered in serviceable condition, you get your $100 back when you're done with it. But that is the provision. The reason we don't just hand these out is we pay extra for service of extra carts. I think it's $10 a month extra per extra cart. So that's $120 a year for every extra cart that we have to put out there for service. So, and the taxpayer, again, it's not private subscription, so the person that gets that extra cart isn't paying it. The taxpayer at large is paying it. We try to manage that closely. Single stream recycling, this isn't intended for you to be able to read it, just to show you that there are all the things that are eligible for recycling all go in the blue cart. They are separated at the destination location by sophisticated machinery that Casella runs to do that. And you can't see overflow provisions. This is important to know for people that run into problems that might not be chronic in terms of consistently happening. So both trash, if you have a problem in a given week with excess trash or excess cardboard, you can take it to the transfer station, not general recycling, but just cardboard. We have 4 dumpsters at the transfer station where we take flattened cardboard, cases of people moving in or moving out, someone who does a lot of receiving at home, gets lots of cardboard. And trash, if you have Thanksgiving coming up, you have too much for that week, you can take it up. Now, you will have to pay for the trash at a nominal rate. It won't be much, because it's done on a volume basis. But the cardboard is not charged. Cart rules. Again, this is another important thing. These carts are owned by Casella, Willie Waste, and they stay with the location that they've been delivered. All but 2 or 3 carts out of 11,000 we have identified with their location. We spent a lot of time verifying that, obviously. We know where every cart by serial number belongs, and we use that information at times. So they stay with the house. They don't go, people obviously don't all know that, and some have gone away, but that's something people should know. The needs for carts are managed by the town. We've taken this on so that we can be more proactive and more responsive to the residents. Rather than let Willimantic deal with it, we deal with it directly, and we keep an inventory of both trash and recycling carts at the transfer station, and we take care of whatever specific issues that the residents have in whatever way with their carts. Okay, this is enforced, the service is enforced strictly by ordinance. Violations of this, if they persist, may impact a person's service, i.e. have their service shut off, or may involve a visit from the town, i.e. to retrieve carts that don't belong where they end up. We have that happening, probably more regular than the other, but, so, it's, the ordinance provisions are enforced strictly. Bulky waste. Now, the bulky waste is also a provision of our curbside collection contract. You get 2 on-call collections per year, which is pretty generous, considering most people wouldn't use that for every year for all the stuff that they can put out there. What does that involve? Well, here are, I'll enlarge this for people here anyway. So this involves household furniture, including mattresses, scrap wood, white goods, i.e. appliances, miscellaneous metals, and leaves. Now, the important thing about this, I'm gonna pop this back out, is that there are limits. And so you'd want to know what those are, and the company strictly follows those limits in terms of a quantity per pickup. But there are no limits on how many of those categories you can use per call. You can reach the limit of each one of those categories in each call. And if it's metals, there's no limit, as long as the size is followed. Leaves, there is an important provision and a limit that we've established, and that is, it's only run curbside from November 1st to December 31st. So outside that, you're gonna have to take them to the transfer station. So if people want to use the curbside leaf provision, they've gotta do it within that 2-month period, which we are now 2 weeks or so within, right? Arrangements are to be made, let me zoom in on this, hopefully this will pop up. Arrangements for bulky waste are to be made directly with Casella or Willie Waste, and there's their number. That number is also available on the website at any point people want to make a call. So arrangements for bulky waste, they take the call and they record very carefully when it's been used. Contacts. Oh, here we go. I don't know what happened there, but anyway. Oops, let me go back. There we go. Okay, for contacts, relative to waste services, if it's something to do with a particular service incident, a missed pickup, or, oops, I forgot to put the card out, could you take care of me, or a complaint about service, the first place to call is directly to the contractor. The town would simply be a middleman in trying to shuffle out the details of that. They're good about making follow-up arrangements to return to pick up something that was either forgotten or they missed. And if there's a complaint about what they've done, certainly be best for them to hear about it first, and then, of course, if I hear about it, then I can get some, they've already looked into it perhaps. If there's a matter, if it's about, if it's a matter of a cart or other questions about the service, a little secret, that's my phone number. That's my direct line. So I take those calls directly. Now, if they get to me through the highway superintendent, that's fine. As long as they get to us, we'll follow up, but I will take care of it. I keep track of all the cart data, so ultimately I have to have that anyway. But okay, household hazardous waste. This is an important service that's run regionally by the Southeastern Connecticut Regional Resources Recovery Authority, SCARA, who we are a member with 11 other towns of. So I think there are 7 collections a year, and they run from April to November. So we're outside now that band. The last service has been done. Typically, I'll just say this, it's a little bit obscured there. The collection is typically held in Ledyard. Every year, Ledyard holds the last collection of the year. And it's typically the first Saturday in November. The spot has bounced around a little bit. I think it's at the high school now.
At the high school last
So
time,
now
yeah.
that the new parking area works out very well, so it's at the high school at this point every November in Ledyard. Provisions, numerous items are accepted, quite a few. The list is on the town website along with items that are not accepted, just so that you hopefully get that sorted out before you go. And again, SCARA manages this, and if there's any questions about the provisions of it, they may be contacted directly. Their offices actually are in town, which is helpful. And this information is all on the town's website. Transfer station. Location is 889, actually R Colonel Ledyard Highway, but 889 Colonel Ledyard Highway. And that is what the entrance looks like in case you were just driving up Route 117 north of the town and wanted to find it. It's those three blue signs. You can't really miss those. And you don't see anything from the road once you go up, but once you go up the road and get to the top, there are additional signs that point you to where you need to be. And so the transfer station is there. A map of this is also on the website. Here are the services. Again, I don't feel like going through all of this, just to show you that there are a considerable number of no-fee services for residents. And part of that is due to the fact that it's just a no-cost item for disposal. But SCARA has absorbed a lot of the expense of disposal of this on behalf of member towns. So SCARA subsidizes, for instance, the disposal of waste oil, antifreeze, the Freon, the electronics equipment. Paint is a separate program, and mattress is a separate program. Tires, which you see on the right side, we collect a fee for tires nominally simply because of the administration aspect of that, and to encourage people to actually get rid of them at their tire store when they're getting their tires changed, as opposed to carrying them around with them. And then we also charge separate fees for leaves and bulky disposal between residents and commercial. There's no disposal cost for leaves and brush for residents, and so you see that there by small, medium, and large load for commercial haulers. And the bulky waste disposal, let me see if I can get this pulled up where you can't see it here, is done on the basis of the size of the truck, and the attendant estimates as best he can, based on those basic categories, what the size of the load is to determine. And just a quick note here that this fee schedule is approved by the town council. So we haven't done any changes to this in a while, but if there ever were any changes, the town council would be the one to make the final approval on these fees. Hours of operation, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. So there's one weekend day and a couple days there during the week. That seems to be working fine for the volume of time or of flow that we have. And contacts, again, it's the 9060 number. The extension 4 is during hours. You may get the attendant actually in the shack that you see there. He's stationed there, and he would answer your calls at that point during hours. Otherwise, extension 1 gets you back to the highway superintendent. And what about links? Okay, there's a trash and recycling link right on the home page. So you would click there, and there's all much more information than I've even shared tonight, of course, that's available there. Or you can go through the old method of hitting the Department of Public Works, and there's a trash and recycling link on the side bar there on the Public Works page. But that's the main way to get to the trash and recycling page. And here is the trash and recycling page when you get there, and you've got a curbside collection page, with additional links. You've got a bulky waste page with all the information you need, plenty of links there too. You've got the hazardous waste collection page, and that goes directly to the SCARA website. That would have the most up-to-date information in every respect to that service, so that takes you right there. And the transfer station, and this, of course, is just a portion of that page. So each of these have got a separate page that would get you all the information you need. Road maintenance. Shifting gears here. Roadway type, just to show what you've got. We've got the paved roads in about an amount of about 111.5. That's not a static number. We've got 2 subdivision applications in process that are going to slap on us another bit of side streets to add to that number. And we've got obviously a very nominal amount of gravel road, and there's only one stretch of gravel road that's still open to public transportation now that Lambtown Extension is closed, only the stretch of Thomas Road. So those don't require a lot of maintenance. In terms of functional class of our paved roads, let me zoom in on this. Functional class, you've got 34 miles arterial, about 14 and change of our collector. Those are the main roads. Arterial the highest class, collector the next class, and then your local side streets about 63 miles. So that's how the 111.5 miles is broken down. Now, what are we up against with our roads? This is one of the standard pavement deterioration curves. This is what happens to a road on a scale of 0 to 100, with 100 of course being best. It starts out at some point at 100. And then over time, which you can't really see too well at the bottom, but this scale at the bottom is about 25 years. So it doesn't take long for it to, say, 10 years down the curve, you're now dropping down into a rehabilitation class, which is paving class. So it's a constant battle to keep your roads in a network, in a sense of a network, at an average classification that's maybe, let's say, in the blue. But you want to keep all your roads, while you're doing that, out of the red. So how do you do that? That's what we're up against. That's what we need to try to take care of in terms of, or tackle in terms of our road program. So there was a rudimentary way of getting this rolling when I took over 29 years ago, or 27 years ago now. It was all very manual, but we decided to get professional assistance back in 2010, and we brought in a company called Beta. Let me pull that up here. And they did a thorough road surface study. So this is in December of this is our recent latest study. But Beta, I just wanted to show the icon there. But back in 2010, with a report coming out in early 2011, we had our initial study, and on the basis of that, we really ramped up our road surface management program with quantitative information that gave us a basis for the costing of the needs that we had on a cost basis. And every 3 years, we have had a reset of our road network by another follow-up study. So we've had previous versions. This is the 2020 version we have right here, the latest version. Then we've had 3 previous versions. Now this is a synopsis that is in our latest study, and it just talks about where we've been, what we've done, and it said in the 10-year window, if I can get down here, I'll zoom in on a couple high points. So it says over this 10-year window, almost all of the 111 town maintained roadway miles have been addressed, with some of those roads having been treated 2 or 3 times already since. And we've worked with Beta not only to update our study, but keep a detailed historical log of what we've done. And I'll show you some information on that. So this approach has resulted in a roughly 10-point increase in our average road surface rating. So when I first started, it was about 69. We had gotten it up to the low to mid 70s, and now it's in the low to mid 80s consistently. So one of the things that was noted here, and you won't be able to see this probably, I'll just read it. And this is a testament to the town's leadership in buying into this and consistently funding this. And this is by way of just not a pitch for continued funding, though it could go that way, but just a statement of what has been done during this time period. And this is what the consultant said. He says, as a result of, you can't read it here, but I'll read it at the bottom. As a result of the longevity of success and improvement to its road network, the town of Ledyard should be viewed as a model community in New England, as they have demonstrated their full commitment to maintaining the pavement management program. Now, this is, as of the 2020 report, our road, the bar graph shows the network in terms of categories of road surface rating. I'd say we're in pretty good shape. We should be happy with this. Everything from the green to the dark blue shows that's everything from 70 and up. And in fact, everything from 80 and up is 77.5% of our roads are 80 and up. And so, and then you go down another 20 is 70 to 80. So about 12, total 12 is 70 and below, with only 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 at 60 and below, 4%, 60 and below. And we're better than that now. So this was as of 2020. And so that report was 83.36. Now, what about funding? I'll talk a little bit about this. That was all capital right there. Let's back up and talk about routine maintenance. What is routine maintenance, and what is the annual outlay for routine maintenance? Obviously, you got potholes. Thankfully, we're not chasing potholes like we have been in some distant past. We really don't have. In fact, the superintendent is waiting for more potholes to have enough to go buy the minimum quantity of asphalt at the plant before he sends the guys out. So that is really good, obviously, for not just our condition of our roads, but keep our guys busy on stuff that is maybe more robust. So potholes, and I have patching, which is a little bit more involved in the way we do it, drainage, line striping, guide rail repairs, tree removal, canopy trimming, etc. Not including snow removal, which is a variable from year to year in a separate budget. But we devote 180 to 200,000 annually to just janitorial type services for roads. So that's a substantial amount, but it shows how much is needed for that. And an appreciable amount of this is from Town Aid Road. About 80% of the funds that we use on this category are from the state's grant program, Town Aid Road. So that's how much we're dependent upon state grant money for that. Now, that's just in routine maintenance. Now, how about road resurfacing? Well, this gives it to you in a kind of a road surface rating maintenance context. You can see right here, you've got $1 million a year. What that equates to is a flat line there relative to projected road surface rating. So the metrics call for $1 million a year to maintain a flat average network road surface rating. So you don't want to lose your road surface rating. That's what the thumb rules call for, $1 million a year. And this is in the road resurfacing budget, which is a capital budget. And I don't seek any more than that, because we've been able to stretch. You'll see we've been able to stretch our $1 million or so. I think we get. I think that you all have, town council, mayor have budgeted at $950,000 a year. So it's just shy of that, and that actually is a little bit of a climbing curve there. So maybe 950 keeps it perfectly flat. So. Theoretically. So that's how we've determined our road surface resurfacing capital fund requirements, and it's proven to be the case through several years of managing it that way. And, let me back up. We have found that a large proportion of this money is tied to various state grant programs. And so if the tax outlay out of that 950,000 year to year is usually averages 200,000. So 25% max is what the taxpayer is paying directly toward road resurfacing. And so in both categories, it's about 20 to 25% is all the taxpayers paying toward road maintenance. So if the state grant programs collapsed, we would be obviously having to find a way locally to cover these costs if we wanted to keep our roads in shape. But anyway. Okay, next, how about road repair treatments? Now, we've talked about dollars and what, there's different road repair methods from most involved to least involved. Of course, defer maintenance means you don't need to do anything. But reconstruction means completely rebuild. Reclamation means grind it all up and flatten it. Rehabilitation is milling and filling and overlay. Preventive maintenance is various types of surface treatments, slurry treatments, rejuvenation treatments in the surface. And then routine maintenance is like crack sealing. So I have graphics for this. So therefore, paving would be the top three. I put those in a paving category. They result in new asphalt on top. This is the two of the recent, well, this is Lorenz Industrial Parkway and Commerce Court that were just resurfaced this last October, I believe. So these were just paved, milled and paved. Then you had preventive maintenance, microsurfacing. This is the stretch of Spicer Hill Road coming up from Route 117 going toward 214, so just coming across from the dump. This is a microsurface road. Looks like it's a paved surface, but it oxidizes differently, but it restores the surface and has a shorter life expectancy, but the cost per square yard per year allows you to stretch your dollar further for this type of a treatment. And if you have a suitable road surface to work with, structurally and condition, you can stretch your roads more than once. And then, of course, crack sealing. This is a dramatic example. It's clear to see. We started using this, and I would say dollar for dollar, crack sealing is the most cost-effective way to stretch the life of your road. Just if you do it right from the get-go. Really, it doesn't look pretty, but I thankfully haven't had a lot of complaints. I guess people are used to it, but that's just what you have to do to stretch the dollar and keep the condition where it needs to be. All right, you can't probably distinguish the colors here. We keep detailed records of what we've done. This goes back to 2011. I've got records back to 1997. But this shows, if you were to be able to get a large enough version of this, and get close enough to it, I guess, you would see the road work that was done by year. This is the road resurfacing work and crack sealing work. So this is in the category of preventive and restoration work. So you will see every year, you could go to this map, and we've got this, you can see, well, what did we do in different years? Probably not something people need to have memorized, but at least we have the data to show that we've done something. This might be more helpful for people. Again, you can't really see it. What I'll do is I'll try to talk through it. This is a roadway history of spending, a roadway maintenance spending history back to 1997. So from 1997 through 2021, it shows how much money per square yard has been paid per road. So you can see if it's the lower category is dark blue. It doesn't always mean that your roads are in bad shape. It just means that's what it was paid to get it to where it needed to be. So from red, which is the highest amount per square yard, down to dark blue, the lowest amount. This shows what's been spent on roads to do what we've needed to do back to 1997. There are only a few roads that have nothing on them, and there are additional roads that would have it now since this last year's maintenance cycle. So these are available if anyone wanted. I don't have them online. I could get them online. I think I've been gradually populating our website with things that people can have access to if they want to see it themselves. So we're doing that. This shows now where we're at going as of August of 2022, August 5th. Our roadway network then was 84.06 after what we had done up to that point this year. And I'll tell you that we've done more. We took care of, I don't know if you'll be able to see me do this. Look over to the right there. That's Crocker Hill. That was totally resurfaced, and that was at a 20-something rating, so that's at 100. Here is down in the bottom, that's Lorenz Parkway and Commerce Court. You can't see that in the audience, I guess maybe you can. Those were just redone, and Oak Hills Trail right here was resurfaced. So those were all red roads. Those were all in the worst category. We had plans to do Harvard Terrace right here and Van Tassel right here. They're red. The contractor ran out of time. They'll be right out of the gate in the spring. And Thamesview Pentway right here. We'll be doing those 3 roads first thing, and additional roads to those. So those were planned for this year. We didn't get to them. They're going to be taken care of, and then we'll get into other roads. Oh, there. Now you can. No, it didn't help. Sorry, didn't help. Okay. Now, what about information that we have on the website? Again, go to Public Works. We have roadwork notices. That would show anything that's in progress at any point. You'd go there to see, if you're in the public, and say, okay, what is going on and what's the time frame for that? Now we have a road maintenance plan. This is new. This was just added, and this might be most helpful for people if they knew about it, for them, maybe not for me because now I'm on the hook. But we have every road alphabetically in town listed with its next treatment and year. So what can people expect on their road? Now, of course, this is just the tip of the iceberg because there are probably 4 pages of roads. But you go to that link and you can find your road, you can see what's going to be done and when. I will say there's a handful of roads that are identified as pending, either in terms of what the next treatment is, because we don't know exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do something, but we're not sure, or year, because we're not sure the timing. And of course, this is all subject to, as this unfolds, that deterioration curve and what really happens when you go out and look at it, and it may be tweaked, but it gets updated regularly, constantly, and we will update this, and so it will be regularly updated. But there is now a plan. Obviously, you don't see everything on here at this particular section of the list, but you have crack sealing. Paving means it's going to be some form of finished asphalt in the end. Here we do have some microsurfacing roads. We do have some that are scheduled to be microsurfaced. Quite a few of them. More and more, we're going with that because once you get them in good shape, you can stretch your roads quite a bit. So that, I think, is something that the public, it's a common question, right? Might have been one of the ones on the brochure. When's my road going to be paved? What's going to happen? Well, now there's something at least out there that people can look at. Road right-of-way maintenance. There's a few categories of this. First, mowing, roadside mowing. It tends to be pretty tedious and time-consuming. Generally, we start in mid-May when there's enough growth to start mowing, first of all, and then it goes all the way into October, obviously when mostly things have quit growing. We do 2 passes on main roads. A few might get a 3rd pass depending on the need. Every year there's a few that we hit one more time. And then 1 pass on our side streets, which generally doesn't start until we get in a little ways so that we don't have to go back to them. So people have to know that things are going to get out of hand probably on the side streets in some areas before we get to it. It's just the way it is. If they don't take care of it themselves, which we don't expect them to. Some people have done that. Some people have taken on significant areas of roads beyond their own frontage just to keep their neighborhood looking good. And we don't discourage that. We don't expect it. We don't discourage it. But that's okay. Now, one thing we have to point out, residents have to be careful about what they place in the town right-of-way. The town right-of-way is roughly 10 feet from edge of pavement. This is governed officially by an ordinance in various ways, the ordinance that you guys are going to be taking up. It's an omnibus ordinance that handles all kinds of stuff. One of the things is what gets stuck in the right-of-ways. People, we can't police it, we can't enforce it as proactive as we would like to. Things show up all of a sudden in the right-of-ways, and we have to go out and get people to take things out. We have to unfortunately tell them to remove their ornamental bushes that they planted, because it's gonna grow into an unwieldy problem for us if you leave it there. So, within the first 10 feet, it's at your own risk, whether you wanna put something, shrubbery or something. Now, if it's a low-growing ornamental or flowering, that's fine, but those still remain at risk. Our mowing operators are careful, but they can't always distinguish an ornamental flower bush from something that's just mixed in with grass. So it's still at your risk. We do our best, but it may go away. We've added a second mower. Finally, we think we've got it right this time. So next year, we'll be able to supplement that main mower and get out and get to some of these other areas in the neighborhoods quick enough before they get out of hand. So it won't be constantly running, but we think it'll run enough to keep up with what we have. Brush cutting, here's another category. This is something that we do that has people on the ground with a brush chipper. They go around and they chainsaws and pole saws and things like that. We get out there and try to proactively stay on top of the entire this is mostly in the main road areas, all of our main roads. And it's important for a number of reasons, of course. Sight lines, traffic impacts. If it grows too far out into the road, it forces traffic to the center line. If you went up Avery Hill Road, you saw where we got into those forsythia bushes. We work with the residents, so we didn't, we talk and communicate, but that was a case where it was forcing trucks into the center of the road. So pedestrian access, you don't have anywhere to get off the road if it's all grown up and bushy and stuff, so that gives them pedestrian access. Snow shelf preservation, when you're plowing, you want the snow to freely go into the shoulder. And then just prevention of trees getting from saplings to big trees. The best time to do that is when they're just coming up. Just go out and mow them down and you've taken care of it. Next category, tree removal. This is, of course, the next higher category, tree removal and trimming. Hazard trees. We have a proactive approach. We go out and survey the town during leaf out. So this spring we'll go out and capture what didn't leaf out. We got to find the ones that are still dying. And as you've noticed over the last several years, there's been a dramatic increase of tree kill. The gypsy moths about 5 years ago, and then the emerald ash borer is wrapping up now in our area, and we're still catching up on those trees. So that became a huge influx of hazard trees we've had to take care of. It's cost a lot of money. I've approached the council more than once and just recently about a supplemental appropriation to tackle the ones we're still dealing with. So that's just common sense. Next is one that might not be so common sense. Canopy. Canopy, dealing with the canopy. The branches that extend over the top of the road that look great on a country road up in Vermont where you're driving and want to have that feel of tree branches over the top of you and everything. They're terrible for road conditions. Canopy and road conditions do not coexist well. For a couple reasons. They shade the road. The worst thing for a road surface is lingering water, lingering moisture. You've got to have your roads dry, so your drainage has got to be good to shed it, but then you want your surface to dry as quickly as possible. Of course, if it freezes, then that's even worse for your road surface. So you want to open your canopy to get the sun in and get the air moving in there, and it just has made such a big difference as we've gone along in maintaining our roads and improving our roads to open the canopy up. So we have a systematic approach to doing that as well. We do about 3 miles a year of canopy clearing. Last year we did Military Highway, and you may have noticed it somewhere in town because we're now 80% complete with our main roads. I may or may not get done before I retire, but because we're trying, but if we get to that 80, 100%, then we have to get back around and do some touch-up. But even the first one we did is still hanging in there with just minor touch-up needs, so that's going on. I don't know where we're gonna go this year, but that will be, usually we do that in the late winter. It works out best for the tree company, but it all depends on their work needs or availability. Okay, getting now to the end, our buildings and grounds maintenance. The department maintains 8, at least has traditionally maintained 8 primary facilities. This town hall complex with the annex, the police station, which now is next door, the emergency services building on Fairway Drive, our highway garage, the Bill Library, the Gales Ferry Library Community Center, the Senior Center, and the ACO facility, which is co-located up at our highway garage campus. We added I guess the food pantry that's on our list now. I think it was added in 2020. I just took a stab at it, but that's about when it went to the Morgan building, I think. So that's now something we take care of. I know it's got its own little lane there in some respects, but I know my guys spent a lot of time over there. Grounds, in addition to the grounds around our facilities, the department maintains numerous miscellaneous right-of-way areas that are historically something we've done. Somehow we're tied into the Highlands neighborhood with some of the walking paths, the grass paths down there we maintain. There's a few road right-of-ways along Route 117 areas that we take care of. So the guys are mowing all the time during the growing season. And now we picked up the town green. I know it's a parks and recreation facility, but we have a nominal amount in our budget to take care of some of the grounds needs, the mowing. We take care of the mowing and the trimming there. And for capital planning, we now have a comprehensive facilities, let's see if I can zoom in here, capital needs document that's done going into budget time to address on a proactive basis all of the needs that our facilities have, so that we have funding enough to get to them as the needs are either planned or arise. So this is something that is part of the backup in the SIP, the capital improvement plan that the planning commission sees and you will see in your budget, and it gets updated every year with what's been done and what has emerged, or the status of what has been carried. So that's that. And then just to close out, these were not on the list, but just to mention things that are handled by the department. There are other few odds and ends here, because it seems like if it can't be plugged in anywhere, it gets plugged into Public Works. I get the call, so. We have a big fleet, fleet of heavy equipment, fleet of town vehicles. We manage or maintain the police fleet and a few other emergency services vehicles. So that requires capital planning, and we have reserve funds in the budget that you see every year for that. And then we have fleet maintenance. There's a $135,000 budget alone just for routine maintenance on the fleet. And it's been about what it's increased to and leveled out at. I don't know what we'll see. We'll see with things lately what that does. But so it's an appreciable amount of work. So we have not only guys that are working on the highway and guys working on buildings and grounds, but we got a couple guys in the garage that are constantly working on our fleet. And then there's just the administrative needs that we have, engineering and application reviews, which I handle on an administrative basis. And of course, I use consultants as necessary to supplement where I either can't keep up or don't have the particular expertise to handle. So that's it. squeezed it in an hour somehow. Thought it would be worse, but I don't know. So anyway, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any question?
A couple. The hazard trees, that if we see one and it's within that 10-foot right of way, I mean, does that make it your guys's or still the homeowners? It's in a. it's
Oh,
on
I'm
the
sorry,
property.
yes, if it is within our official right-of-way, it's our responsibility.
Okay, and who do I contact, you?
Well, you could contact me, or actually the highway superintendent,
Okay.
Joe, if you
Okay.
remember that number, he would take that down.
Okay.
Yep.
And make an official, okay, because I have some that I've definitely seen, they're real dead. Then this isn't, I guess, so much a question, but more of a concern. I live on a pretty heavily treed area. We're on Sherwood Forest. So it's 1 acre lots, lots of trees, it's a forest. And I've just noticed that at least 5 feet on each side of the road are just very heavy with leaves. It makes the road very slick. I just didn't know, is that something that Public Works would come around and clean up, or is that on the homeowners? I mean, I've seen both. I've seen them out there cleaning the drains like last week when we were anticipating rains, but that doesn't last long, because then everything just gets blown back.
Right.
So, I was just wondering, the roads are really slick, and I just.
Right. We do that kind of on an ad hoc basis. We don't have an official program where we go out and clean road edges, but we get to them when we can before plowing season, and we might take our heavy equipment out and at least try to get to areas we know. That's one area. The Glenwoods is another area that I know is a problem. We have certain areas we know that we run into problems with. Obviously, the first snowstorm, and they all get
There's some-
plowed right back into people's yards, and so it is not something we have and we don't plan on adding that either to our program, but it is something that we have variously attended to and tried to stay on top of. In the spring, we get around,
I see you in the spring. but
spring we
that
get
was past
around,
the
yeah,
point,
I know.
right?
In advance of sweeping, we get out there
Gotcha.
and get the heavy stuff off, because the sweeper would have a problem. So, but I do know last year we went around to hit certain areas in advance of winter, and I will talk to the superintendent and mention that neighborhood and see if that might be one that if we get out, that we'll attend to.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all for me right now. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Anybody on Zoom?